thanks for joining us. I'm Jeff Smith. Once again, this is Leading Edge. Today, we are talking social media. And if you're a parent like me or maybe a grandparent, it's a blessing and it's a curse. There are comments out there like social media is the big tobacco of this generation. That's hardly a positive connotation. I had somebody with some pretty good insight the other day tell me that one of the reasons that we are seeing so much violence on Toledo streets is because kids have been, quote unquote, beefing on social media all winter long, and now they're finally seeing each other face to face on the streets, and they're coming armed for those meetings. Still, there are statistics that show the benefits in the fields of communication, news gathering, healthcare, you name it. But it is extremely polarizing, and for each plus or positive you bring up, there's often a minus, and that's where we're driving to today on this topic. I'm so glad to have with me Kylie Doty. She is right now the digital media coordinator at Lourdes University. We appreciate you being here. Right next to her, Katie Peters, Director of Communications at Washington Local Schools. And also joining us via Zoom today, we want to say hello to Professor Louisa Ha. She is with the BGSU School of Media and Communications. So we're going to go through, I want to kind of lay the groundwork for how this is going to work today. We're going to go through a bunch of pros and cons. We're going to talk specifics about social media. But first and foremost, Katie, let's start with you because you have been out there. I'll just put that out there. You have been out there on social media using this platform to your benefit, especially over the pandemic. We have done stories here to reach students. Start me off with a pro. Why is digital media, and I've kind of coined today, digital media or social media, why do we need it?
Well, first of all, I think as a humanity, we're lacking connection. And social media is a method to providing human connection. So you mentioned I started a social media presence really during the pandemic, and that was because I was a high school English teacher, and I needed a way to keep that bridge with my students alive, even though we weren't in the same physical space. And so it really served its purpose in connecting us in ways that I would not have been able to without it.
As this generation, this new generation, and Kylie, I'll say you are part of that generation that really has kind of wrapped its arms around social media. As you look at it, the benefit to you is what?
There's a lot of benefits, but growing up with social media, I think has ingrained it in my generation and those who are younger than me even.
It's the fabric of who you are.
It totally is, and we grow up knowing how to do it, and it's not necessarily like we ever had to learn it per se, because it happened so young and when we were so young, and it continues to evolve, and as these things continue to evolve, we just continue to know how they work, and because we're using them all the time. Especially through COVID, we established that community, kind of like how Katie just said, and it was the way that we continually connected with those around us. So I would say the community aspect for us as well, just generationally for any generation that uses social media.
I want to bring the professor in here. Professor, I'm going to set you up with our first pro and con, and we can show people there at home. The pro being that social media promotes community, kind of what Katie and Kylie were just saying. It can translate into or supplement offline relationships. The con of that being social media promotes cyberbullying that spills into offline life. Which side are you on?
I would say both, because the social media have positive and negative impact on people's life. In particular, social life, it really supplement. We in our field, we call it social compensation hypothesis, that actually help people to compensate if they could not have a real life face-to-face contact. They can use the social media to keep up to date with other people, especially their friends and family who are afar, especially for college students who move out from their home and their high school friends and so on and so forth. It's important connection that they could have with their friends.
But you said, go ahead.
Bad use of the social media, that people can make use of it to bully others, just like they would do it offline, bully people. But instead of bullying offline, they bully online. So a lot of things is just replicating what we have in real life. So it's just maybe magnifying, or more people may be seeing it, but actually making it visible and documentable actually is maybe better than what we see offline, which we may not be able to see when people bully other people.
Katie, I got to ask, because I mean, these conversations happen in the newsroom, these conversations happen in my household. We see some of the news stories that are like, why are things so intense right now? And honest to goodness, I keep pointing back. You can't put all the blame on social media. You can't put all the blame on COVID, but you can put a lot of it, can't you?
I think just like anything, it can be used for good and it can be used for evil. What I think is oftentimes not discussed, though, is that it does.
Let me stop you there.
Yeah.
What are the other things that can be used for good and evil? If you're saying just like anything, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate there. I mean,
Sure.
because I really see this as being a serious good and evil issue.
Well, I mean, you think about cell phones, right? Just cell phones in general. In my generation, they started putting them in cars. And we had to plug them in. And everyone said, oh, this is a bad idea, this is a bad idea. But it's a good idea when you're stranded and you needed one. So it's just a matter of how you utilize.
It's a bad idea when you're distracted on the road.
When you're distracted on the road. So it's just a matter of how you utilize it. And I think part of the responsibility of the generation that has been raised on social media is to demonstrate good behaviors. And so one of the things I used to preach in my classroom all the time was cell phones inherently aren't bad, but there's a time and a place to use a cell phone. There's a way to use a cell phone. And social media is really no different. It brings to light a lot of the human flaws that we have in our human condition, but it also can be used for goodness and compassion and spreading good things and learning. A lot of learning happens through social media platforms.
To that point, and you kind of set me up for the next point, I wanted Kylie to get you in on this. One of our factoids is that social media sites are one of the top news sources for 46% of Americans, almost half the country getting their news from social media, compared to 66% for TV, 26 newspapers, 23 for radio. Where are you consuming the most news?
Definitely from social media, and I think a big part of that is just because it's so accessible, and a lot of them are free. So it's like you don't always have your TV on you, and you can't always see a TV, but you have that same information and those same sources just right on your phone.
But let me pare it down from there.
Yeah.
What information are you getting? Like, are you
News-wise?
Yes, I'm curious. You say I get it from social media,
Yes.
but what are your sources? You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, so there's a lot of mis and disinformation, which is also a huge topic of debate about news in general, because you're basically gone through all of these political things the past couple of years, right? And you're confused about what you can believe and not. I know that in grad school we talked a lot about Twitter and how Twitter was a main source of news for a lot of people. Unfortunately, Twitter is also one of the main sources of mis and disinformation as well, and especially then like news biases and things of that nature. So I would say Twitter is a big one. But also across like Facebook and Instagram, there's also a lot of news that gets spread as well.
Professor, before we go to our first break, I wanted to bring you in on Twitter. And when we talk about sources of news, of information, what you're telling students, I mean, it's obvious they're going to go to those outlets, but do you caution, do you proceed with caution with your students?
Well, social media has its own limitation because especially the length of the message is short, so it's very easy to misinterpretation and also put the wrong information out there. I would strongly recommend them to look at the source. Even in social media, there are different types of social media source. And also, in addition to social media, there are news apps. There are other sources of online news that can be free as well. They should consider other sites, not just social media, that is within their own circle and fed by the social media company.
Stay right there. We're going to continue our conversation here on the other side of this break. We're back with more on social media. Who needs it? Right after this. Welcome back here on Leading Edge, talking about social media. Who needs it? You can put a question mark or a period at the end of that statement. We're talking pros and cons. Let's look at the next one before we bring on our guest. Pro, social media encourages civic and political responsibility. Con, social media encourages the spread of misinformation. I think we touched on that. That is exactly what Kylie was talking about. If the control room, if we can put up that third, pro and con, just to talk more about some of the positives, some of the negatives that we see, we'll read through them. The pro being social media bolsters inclusivity and diversity on and offline. The con, social media increases privacy risks across the internet. Katie?
Well, the inclusivity piece I can speak to directly because I do know that there are facets of people, again, my specialty was teenagers, but who feel excluded in public situations, and yet on social media they find these communities of people who share their interests and who share their loves and their passions, and they don't have to live in the same city. They're able to connect with those people. But again, we have to be sure that we are also educating social media users about the limitations of what you offer and what you share, and as far as your locations and your vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
So it works both ways.
Because he gave you a voice. I mean, you were very forthcoming. You were very blunt in some of the posts that you put out there on TikTok, and you felt that, right?
Absolutely. And I also felt that community around me saying, yes, we feel this way as well. And it not only gives strength, because there are strength in numbers, but it also allows you other perspectives. There were still people who said, I disagree, and this is why. And it allowed me to see and step outside of myself, which is a good thing. Self-reflection is great.
You know, I want to go back to that misinformation. We had a release of from a school just last week that the very last line where they were explaining why they had a lockdown earlier in the day, they explained at the end something about social media and the misinformation that's out there. So even schools are kind of scaling it back a little bit. But when we go back to the pro and con, Kylie, as far as inclusivity, you see it as a positive, you see it as a negative?
I definitely see inclusivity as a positive, especially that community, just how Katie was just saying. A lot of people that can't find communities or don't have access to communities near them, geographically maybe, or in their same city, etc. They're able to find communities and make those connections as close to an interpersonal connection as you can make over the media, which is, you know, the aim, but it's not always what
You have
happens.
decades and decades in between you sometimes. You make that connection and all of a sudden you're reconnected like it was there was no time in between at all. Doctor, as we talk a little bit about, I opened the show talking about some of the beefing, if you will, that goes on offline, online, and some of the violence that we have seen in their streets. I'm not looking for you to solve that, but I am looking to kind of solve the discussion as far as why social media is serving that role of kind of hyping up or intensifying emotions.
Well, I think the thing is we should not just blame on social media per se, but one of the thing is why would people resort to the violence or to the challenge, the TikTok challenge, is because they have maybe some sort of deficiency, or they really need that kind of bolstering through those so-called challenge to show themselves. So instead of social media, they may have something else that would do the same thing. I think the most important thing is the media literacy, especially I would recommend like any kind of challenge message should put a disclaimer on it that those challenge can be dangerous, just like FDA when we do the drug advertisement, right? We have the disclaimer. The disclaimer should be there. Any kind of challenge should have that kind of disclaimer to remind people that just don't take the word for it. You should really think about yourself, and also it can be dangerous. You should check with expert and so on and so forth before you take that actions. I think the media literacy education is very important. Right now, media literacy actually including general media literacy on TV, video games, also social media and information literacy. All three should be combined. I would recommend it to be a required course for all high school or even elementary school now. It's so important because they exposed to this kind of content so early. They need to know how to deal with it.
Absolutely. Those are very valid points. Dr. Louisa Ha, we appreciate it, from BGSU. Also, Kylie, Katie, thank you for being in studio with us. Stay with us. When we come back, we're going to talk more on the other side. Some more opinions. We may talk about mental health a little bit as well and how all this plays in. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back. We wanted to continue our conversation. Once again, the name of this show, Leading Edge. The focus today, social media. Who needs it? We are so glad to have with us two local gentlemen who probably don't need any introduction. I'll do it anyway. From 107.3 The Juice, Charlie Mack. Also Fred Lefevre from WSPD 1370 AM, 92.9 FM. Guys, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Oh,
Great
thanks
to
for
have
the invitation.
Oh, absolutely. This is something hopefully we can start this relationship of having you guys in frequently, especially when we have topics like this. The discussion never goes away when it comes to social media. From our generation, a little different perspective than maybe even Kylie's perspective from Lourdes University, who we had here, just a generation, a younger generation that embraces social media because it's been a part of their fabric of who they are for so long. Charlie, I'll start with you. I started talking at the beginning of this show about some of those intensifications of feelings, and things are kind of amped up because of what social media provides.
Right.
Are you a proponent or are you an opponent to it?
I'm a little bit of both. I'm
Okay.
a little bit of both. My fear with social media is the lack of reality. You know, I'm afraid that people are going to get caught up and lose the sense of what is real, what is not, and then, like you said, the emotions are so intense. I'm afraid they're going to go off of that and with an intense emotion, and I don't think that's very good.
But the pro being?
The pro being, it's a way to connect. It really is. Social media was made to be social. So for us to connect with people, like Fred and I are friends on Facebook. He doesn't talk to me on Facebook hardly at all. And so it's a way for us to be social. It's a way for us to connect with many people that we may have not. Like I connect with my family members across the country and across the world.
Sure.
So there's a pro component to that as well.
Absolutely.
And it's not just the social part. Both Charlie and I use Facebook for our businesses also. He's in the real estate business, so I see his posts all the time about houses he has for sale and how to connect with him for that. I wouldn't be on social media, I don't think, if I hadn't been forced to have a Facebook page in the first place for the radio station, because I find it to be a distraction for the most part. So I use it more as a play toy than anything else. I don't use it for real news for the most part. I use it to reach out to the listeners and kind of poke the bear almost most of the time, just to get a reaction that then I can use on air.
We shared that statistic, Fred. Just social media sites are one of the top news sources.
Which
like
is sad.
46% of Americans, that's where they get their news.
No, and it's really sad because that's not a good place to get the news. I show prep about 3 hours every night before I go on the air. If all I used was Facebook, my show would really sound bad.
Right.
So I use foreign newspapers, local newspapers, newspapers from wherever the news is happening, like Missouri for that recent shooting. I go to that source. I can't rely on Facebook. There's just too much misinformation, as your previous guest had mentioned.
Go ahead, Charlie.
I feel like it's a source for news and whatnot because it's always handy. Because it's the first go-to. I mean, I know people that wake up in the morning and the first thing to do is to check their social media.
Yeah.
So I think it's a go-to for news just because it's a go-to for everything. You know, not necessarily just for information, but just for everything.
But what has it done to us as a culture? I think that's the thing. You said people are waking up. They're looking at their social media.
Oh, yeah.
Are they looking to see how many likes they got on something?
Yes.
I mean, just that gratification
Yes.
feeling?
Okay, I feel attacked.
That's another... Are you doing that?
Well, no, I'm not saying you do that.
But is that not, when we talk about mental health, when we talk about the ability to handle things in this world, and having to get that gratification on social media, I mean, is that not a pitfall?
I mean, I don't know if it's dopamine or whatever, but it gets the same, or serotonin. It's the same emotion that you get when you get a lot of likes. It gives you that physical reaction.
Yeah.
And I can see where people can get away from reality and just caught up in the social media reality, which is not real at all.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Charlie's got like 7 kids, age 20 down to 16. You've got kids.
3.
I've got kids and grandkids. Responsibility is the key in all of this. All right? If you let your kids get on social media and just do whatever they want to do, they are going to have problems. They'll get bullied. But if you bring your kids up properly, and like I see your kid is very successful, your children are very successful, you bring your kids up to respect themselves first and respect other people, you won't have these bullying problems and all these other problems on Facebook that you have. It's parents abrogating their responsibility over what they see on social media that is causing a lot of the problems. It's not the social media, because this same argument was brought when newspapers and books were distributed to the general public, when movies came out, when TVs and comic books. You always want to blame
People
the media.
fear change.
Yeah.
I understand that. But when you guys are talking to your audience, I mean, do you obviously you're talking about the violence in the streets of Toledo and what we have seen over the last few months. And I mean, do you blame any of this on social media?
I don't.
Have you had that argument?
I don't. We've talked about, and I've had Earl Mack on with 40 years of law enforcement. We talk about the parents' responsibility.
I think I'm not sorry to cut you off. I believe that he's right. I don't talk about it, but I do talk about the social media fueling the fire, flaming the flames, to get every reaction out of people who wouldn't necessarily have a reaction to something going on, and then it might result in violence.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be curious though. So your kid gets attacked on, your 16-year-old gets attacked on Facebook. Do they come and talk to you about that? And
Absolutely
what do you
not.
tell them?
Absolutely not. And that's the thing about it, because even though we have a very open and honest relationship, my children, I talk to them too much. They wouldn't come to me about that, because it's still, mental health is a certain thing. People aren't necessarily open as they should be, and social media is a problem because of it.
So when I asked the all-encompassing question today, social media, who needs it? Are you raising your hand? It's not like a baptismal promise, but it's like, I do?
I need it.
Do you?
I need it.
Do you really?
Well, I need it for business, like you said. I need it for business.
That's true.
I need it. I have to advertise for whatever I'm doing. I do get on there personally, but I try to limit it to business. But I can't help myself. I can't help but I fall into the abyss where I'm sharing personal things that people really don't care about.
Yeah.
I need to be more like
Don't
Fred.
share pictures of your lunch.
But opinion is a very slippery slope, and I appreciate
is.
you guys joining me today to talk about that. But do you have those moments, Fred, even when you post something that you have to kind of scale it back a little bit, because I don't want to push people the wrong way?
Yeah, no, I don't worry about that. I can't, seriously, I don't. I can't post anything without somebody arguing about it. I could post a quote from a movie, and someone will read it wrong and think I'm taking a political stand.
Yeah.
So when it comes to pro and con, I'm not pro or con. I don't need it, but I use it on a regular basis.
Yeah,
Okay.
understood. And the same thing could be a misunderstanding for a text that is sent through.
Exactly.
Gentlemen, good to see you. I hope we do this again.
Hope so.
I hope
too.
so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stay right there. Final word right after this. Welcome back for a final time here on Leading Edge. If you missed any part of our conversation, check out our YouTube page, WTOL. Also, you can find this show as a podcast. Have a great rest of your week.